So this is the third of 3 videos looking at the topic of simplifying expressions in algebra. In the first video we looked at simplifying by adding and subtracting, so questions like this, x plus x. In the second video we looked at simplifying expressions by multiplying and dividing, so questions like this, x times x. In this video what I want to do is explore common confusions between those different techniques, those different ideas. It's a very common theme in maths generally, that techniques that work absolutely fine for adding and subtracting don't work for multiplying and dividing, and what students often do is take a technique that they've learnt in one area and apply it wrongly in another area. That happens all the time in maths. It happens particularly with negative numbers, it happens with fractions, and it definitely happens with simplifying expressions. So let's look at these 2 questions to begin with. I've got x plus x. Well, what have we got there? Well, something plus itself, and something plus itself is always equal to 2 times that thing. So x plus x is 2x. In contrast, x times x, it's very common to see people say 2x here. And let me just write that down for a minute. This is wrong, but you often hear that. Again, let me just put a cross there to indicate that's definitely not true. How do I know that's not true? Because it doesn't work for all numbers. Let me give you an example. If x was, should we say 10? Then we're saying here that 10 times 10 is the same as 2 times 10. Well, 10 times 10 is 100 and 2 times 10 is 20, so it definitely doesn't work for that example. Therefore, this rule is wrong. But you can see why people put that is because they get it mixed up with this one here. So again, it's that confusion between the 2 different techniques. So what should the answer be? Well, as we saw in the second video in this sequence, when you're multiplying a number by itself, that's not times 2. We say a number times itself is that number squared. So here, the answer is x squared. So 2 more questions here, 2x plus 2x and 2x times 2x. Okay, so let's look at the first one here, 2x plus 2x. That's 2 of something plus 2 more of that thing. Well, what would you have if you had 2 pens plus 2 pens? You'd have 4 pens. 2 bananas plus 2 bananas is 4 bananas. So 2x plus 2x is 4x. There's no powers coming in here, no squares or anything like that. We're just adding quantities of the same kind of thing. Now in contrast, here we've got 2x times 2x, and here we need to remember a couple of things. We've got the 2 times 2, which we can do first. That's 4. But we've also got an x times x, and x times x is x squared. If you remember from the previous video, we said when you've got algebraic terms with numbers in front, and you're multiplying them, do the numbers first. 2 times 2 is 4, and then do the unknowns, the x's in this case, second. X times x is x squared. So 2x times 2x is 4x squared. If we just throw a couple more in, if I had 3x plus 3x, well, 3x plus 3x, we've got something plus, 3 of something plus 3 more of something is 6 of that thing, so 6x, whereas in contrast, 3x times 3x, 3 times 3 is 9, and x times x is x squared. Okay, a couple more examples here. 5x squared plus 3x, let's look at that one. Okay, well, we've got a problem here. Remember that when you're simplifying with adding and subtracting, you can only simplify if you're adding or subtracting the same kind of thing. What have we got here? We've got 5x squareds, and we've also got 3x's. But x squareds and x's are not the same kind of thing, so there is nothing you can do with that question, that you cannot simplify it. Now I should stress, in a GCSE exam, they'll never give you a question that you can't do. It's just, there'd be no answer, there's no way they could mark it, and it'd be very unfair. Teachers do though, sometimes teachers give questions that don't have an answer. I think it's quite a good thing occasionally to test students, to explore ideas, so no harm in that. But certainly if you're worrying that you're thinking that's not fair, you wouldn't know what to do with that question in an exam, you won't get that. This question here, however, is entirely doable. 5x squared times 3x. Again, we've got multiply the numbers, 5 times 3 is 15. We've got an x squared times an x. Now remember the rule, if you're multiplying powers of the same thing, you add the powers together. We have a little problem here though. We've got 2 plus, there's no number there. So what number would that be? And we said in the previous video, if you don't see a number in algebra, it's usually an invisible 1. 1 is the invisible number. You probably don't ever put 1 in like that in an answer to a question. It's bad form. But if you're amending a question to help you to get the right answer, that's okay. So x squared times x to the power of 1 is x cubed. Again, you can see how easy it would be, though, for people to get mixed up between these two different questions here. So we're going to finish off by looking at 2 more questions. Now, these are both adding subtracting questions, but what I hope you'll see is that with one of them, there's a very easy potential confusion with the multiplying dividing techniques. So let's look at them now. So first question here, 5x plus 7 plus 2x minus 10. Well, I've got x's, which we can group together, so 5x plus the 2x, which makes 7x. And I've got 7 minus 10, which is minus 3. So that one tends to be not too bad. Now let's look at the next one here. If you notice here, the only difference between these two questions is that this one has got x squareds, so 5x squared plus 2x squared, whereas this had 5x plus 2x. That should make almost no difference at all. What we should do here is look at these and say, well, what can we group together? We've got a 5x squared and we've got a 2x squared. And we should group those together to get, well, 5 of something plus 2 of something is 7 of that thing. But before we continue, let's think what the most common mistake here is. People see the squared and the squared, and what they do is their brain, if you like, remembers the technique for multiplying and says, oh, that should be x to the power of 4. And that's such an easy confusion that it's really worth emphasising. In this case, we're adding, these are the same kind of thing, x squareds and x squared, so we don't add the powers, we just group what we've got. 5 of something plus 2 of something is 7 of that thing. And then we've got the 7 minus 10, which is minus 3. So on the surface, these are very, very similar questions. But again, I think a lot of students would get this one right, but then move on to get this one wrong. So it's something I really, really want to emphasise. Right, that will do us for today. Just want to emphasise again, this idea that you have the techniques for multiplying and dividing and the techniques for adding and subtracting, and how good ideas from one can become bad ideas for another is a really, really important thing in maths. You see it all the time. Negative numbers would be another good example. Fractions would be a really good example. So something to be aware of. There's no trick, there's no magic bullet. The only way you can get good with these is practice, and also if you're going into an exam, or you see these questions come up in a test, have it in the forefront of your mind. Just if you know that something is potentially dangerous, you're far less likely to fall into that trap. So as soon as you see a question like this, say to yourself, right, I am adding here. It's not one of these cases where I start worrying about the powers. All we do in this case here is we just group together what we've got that's the same. And that is all for now, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.